Brodes Media.
I need to get my hand in the dirt, damn it. I need to see my big, beefy linemen ready to line up against the Green Bay squad and kick their ass over 4 quarters, right? I mean, before you know it, it'll be here, but this week is going to drag out. I already had to go to the dentist and get a deep cleaning. They could only do half my face because of the insurance, so they have to do half my other face on Friday at 11:30 a.m. So why don't you just factor in one of the worst situations you could ever fathom as a human? I went back to the gym and started the good old, hey, welcome to January 1st, 2025 crap, thinking that I'm going to not lose my New Year's resolution goals. We'll see how that transpires. But, you know, I just busted my ass doing some upper body, in a hoodie, drenched in sweat and riding the bike, jumped in the shower, had a protein shake in the shower, came down here with shower sweats, and now I'm recording a show. So I'm all over the place physically. I'm all over the place emotionally. The only thing that helps settles my nerves is knowing my football team is going to annihilate the Green Bay Packers. So I want to give you a little rundown of what you are going to hear today. Number one, I want to dive back to something Nick Sirianni said 1 year ago. And it does apply to where we stand right now with Jalen Hurts. It's interesting. Now, I want to give a lot of credit to Zach Berman, who dug this up and tweeted it out about 2 hours ago. And this is what it says here. As a preview of what's to come with Jalen Hurts questions, here was Nick Sirianni offering his weekly playbook for injury questions last year when a national reporter asked about Jalen Hurts' status. Here's the quote from Coach. I know you're not here every day with the local media. I'm probably not giving you that information. We'll see. Got to talk to the trainers. Talk to Jalen. We'll get him in tomorrow. John is going to ask me tomorrow. Elliott will ask me tomorrow. How's Jalen? And I'm going to say, I got to see him a little bit more. I'll let you know on Wednesday. Wednesday is going to come. It's going to be before practice. They're going to ask me again. And I'm going to say, I have got to see how it's looking out there, and I will give you more information on Friday. Friday, we'll see if he's on the injury report or not. And then when Friday comes, they're going to ask me, what do you think? What's going to happen here? And I'll say, we'll get you the injury report later in the day. I just string them along. So why is that important? What do you think we are about to experience in just about 24 hours or so? I'm just preparing myself and preparing you. Now, we did get hit with some news right before I started recording the show that Ian Book has been kicked out of town. Of course, there is going to be a corresponding move to something like that. And, well, we can all figure the direction that this is trending. Kenny Pickett with the ribs, Jalen Hurts with the concussion. Look, I think it's pretty obvious that Jalen Hurts is going to be playing football on Sunday, but just know there will be a rocky road to get there, and not because there's truly rockiness happening behind the scenes. It's just the way they're playing the game. It's the way they want Matt LaFleur to double guess himself. It's the way they want the Packers to have to worry for a second that maybe it is a Pickett, maybe it is a McKee. Maybe we have to plan to see what those... Oh! And here's Jalen out there for 4 quarters dominating. It's just the nature of the beast. So what perfect timing to hear a very similar situation not too long ago and how Nick Sirianni expressed the way that he handles this with the media. Wednesday, there's going to be 1 billion members of the media all wondering the same thing. How is Nick Sirianni going to answer the question about the status of Jalen Hurts now that we are focused on a practice to see sort of how he responds? And the thing is, you won't know until after practice and then a night of sleep, seeing how it is 4 or 5 hours after practice. It's how does the body and the mind respond? So Nick Sirianni and the Eagles will use that to their advantage. Don't get mad at me. I'm just the one giving you the history of Sirianni in these spots. Okay. So that's number one. Number two here. This quote bothers me. And it's a quote from a lot of Eagles fans. It's a quote from, of course, a ton of Green Bay Packers fans and even neutral fans that don't have any emotional connection to either two sides. And it goes a little something like this. Green Bay is a tough draw as a 7th seed. I don't think they're a tough draw. I think they're a draw. Because someone has to be drew, whatever. The Eagles are so good. It's laughable to hear that this is some tough matchup for them. Hear me out. Yes, the Green Bay Packers play in a very tough, difficult division in the NFC North with two teams like Minnesota and Detroit, who on Sunday Night Football just played for the number 1 seed in the NFC, a bye week, and everybody coming to your building to have to make it to the Super Bowl as long as you do your job, right? To get to the NFC Championship game. As long as you do that, everyone's got to come to your house. So there is a lot of premier talent in their division. I know that. They went 0 for 4 against those teams. And when you factor in those 4 games plus the Eagles game, the first game of the year in Brazil, they've allowed an average of 30 points per game against those teams. Here's my point. We've seen a lot of good Dallas and Eagles teams in the regular season. Dallas ends up throwing up all over themselves every single postseason. But throughout regular seasons, most of the times we chalk it up to a split, right? The fact that you can't beat any of those teams at all this season, and you can't really beat a lot of good playoff teams in general, we're not the same. If you're going 0 and 4 against your division opponents in Detroit and in Minnesota, it shows that you are a dip off of them. And those two are at the top of the NFC. So are the Eagles. Eagles, Lions, Vikings are all in this same little category. And we could talk about Sam Darnold and the Vikings. And, they were daring him to make throws and he was overthrowing big time. And it looked like the moment was too big for him, where that's when I feel best about Jalen, is when it's winning time. He may struggle in the first quarter. He may struggle in the second quarter. But once they get to the third quarter and they overwhelm teams with their dominance and their physicality, and Saquon gets going and you need timely throws from Jalen in the fourth quarter, he starts to just do sensational things all around the field. But regardless, there is obviously a big difference and a big step up when you discuss Philadelphia, Detroit, and Minnesota. Green Bay's just not there. And when you think of 7th seeds and all, okay, this is it. This is kind of it-ish. They're in range to be a 7th seed. They are a team that beats teams who aren't good, okay, and who aren't better than them. So they beat who's underneath of them, and they can't beat who's in front of them. Sounds like a 7th seed-ish to me. Let's go at it. I don't want to hear about no tough draw crap. Versus playoff teams, Green Bay is 2 and 5. And something that you have to factor in is they are leaking oil. They have major injuries. They can't push the football downfield the same way without Watson on the field. It changes big time how they are going to target what we have with our DBs and our secondary. And I just don't believe that they have the personnel to constantly, over 4 quarters of action, drill home all of these fantastic routes to carve up Vic Fangio with Jordan Love and their weapons. I'm not afraid of their run game. You ever hear of Jordan Davis? You hear Zach Bond? You hear of Nolan Smith? You hear of Josh Sweat? You hear of Jalen Carter? They have a nice run game. Wait until you meet our defensive front. Wait until you meet our linebacking play, which we finally have. And we have shutdown corners. And we have CJGJ, who's a ball hawk. It's night and day. It's two different extremes. It's blue and orange. Okay? It's what it is. They're not the same. It's a 2 seed and a 7 seed. And the Eagles have 14 wins for a reason. Because they are significantly stronger. And if I went through some of the impressive wins the Eagles have, Ravens, going on the road to play the Rams, a Steelers team, leaking oil as well. But when you look through their stretch of football, and it was, oh, this is a big test. Well, this is a big test. Oh, this is a big test. They answered it. They answered it. They answered it. So you want to look through, let's see here. You want to look through the great teams the Eagles were able to accomplish beating this season, where Green Bay constantly fell flat on their face whenever they had an opportunity to do so? That Ravens win on the road was a super impressive win. Beating the Commanders 26-18. Beating the Rams 37-20. And as soon as Vic Fangio settled into that game, they shut down Sean McVay. Oh, Sean McVay's going to run circles because they got Puka back. Hey, here's Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and they're going to run circles around everybody. Shove that up your ass. I mean, they literally got shut down at one point where, looking at Sean McVay, I felt embarrassed for him. And the reason they lost to the Commanders the second time around is because your quarterback gets knocked out 11 snaps into the game, and then it got weird as hell, but you still should have even won that game if it wasn't for a Devontae Smith drop. So the record against playoff teams on our end, when you do it for 18 weeks, it tells a big story.